You can start now.
You're watching a video produced by Balloons called Supporting Children Impacted by Direct or Indirect COVID-19 Bereavement. Next slide, please, Donna. Thank you very much for wanting to watch this training resource, which the Balloons staff team have just produced. We really hope it helps you as you adjust and respond to the unprecedented situation we are all in as we face this global pandemic together. Next slide, please, Donna. We want to thank you all for all that you have personally done to support children and young people in such challenging and traumatic circumstances, as well as clapping for the NHS and other key workers every Thursday. Don't forget, we're clapping for you too. Next slide, please. We decided to produce the training video because, of course, we've had to suspend our one-to-one support for bereaved children and young people, as well as our face-to-face training for professionals. But we didn't want to abandon you altogether. We know that schools are still working to support key worker and vulnerable pupils, and bereavement may well be an issue, even whilst your pupil numbers are low. You'll also, I'm sure, be getting ready to reopen your doors to the pupils currently at home whilst the lockdown is in place, and are likely to be thinking about what issues and challenges you will be faced with when that time comes. We hope that this will be a training resource that you can dip into over the next few weeks. It's important that we note that everything is changing very rapidly. Next slide, please, Donna. We recorded this in late April 2020, and of course you may be viewing it after lockdown has ended and once some of the restrictions have been lifted. We have tried to produce something that is relevant over time and not just in the moment. We've recorded this video while working from home, so excuse the mess, and hopefully the doorbell won't ring, the dogs will stay settled, and you won't hear too much paper rustling whilst we're filming. Hopefully as well, the IT gods will be with us and technical hitches will be kept to a minimum, although I'm sure you'll forgive us if anything does go wrong. Next slide, please. We are still being contacted by schools for support, and we have drawn out the most common themes and questions that schools are bringing to us, and have set out the video in a question and answer format, which we hope is helpful. There are 5 key themes that are coming up as frequently asked questions. In summary, children who are unable to say goodbye in the usual way, a re-traumatizing of historical grief, attachment issues, in other words, more clingy pupils, pupils becoming unkind and difficult to manage, and of course, bereavement through COVID-19 itself. We've written down our answers in advance of recording so that in the moment we don't forget anything useful. And hopefully that will help to make this resource as helpful as it can be. But bear in mind, it means we are reading to a certain extent from a script. Next slide, please, Donna. Before we move to question 1, I just wanted to quickly tell you a bit about Balloons and introduce you to the small staff team who are presenting on this video. Balloons is the child bereavement support charity for children and young people in Exeter, Mid and East Devon. Many of you know us already and may well have referred bereaved pupils to us. We support children and young people aged 5 to 25 in the pre and post bereavement phase. I'm Sarah Bennett and I'm the CEO at Balloons, and also presenting on this video are my wonderful colleagues Liz Cook and Donna James, both of whom are clinical managers at the charity. Next slide, please, Donna. Before Donna picks up the first question, I want to remind you that you already have a wealth of skills, knowledge and experience which will help you to support bereaved children and young people. Those skills, knowledge and experience will stand you in good stead going forwards. Yes, everything has changed, but you are still professionals and you know how to work alongside vulnerable pupils. You already know the importance of active listening, of allowing the people time to tell their story, of accepting the different ways in which different pupils cope and work towards finding resolution and recovery. You know that some pupils take baby steps, others giant leaps forward. You know all about puddle jumping, pupils being okay at times and desolate at others. You already know the importance of self-care so that you as a professional can wake up each day and face the challenges that that day brings. None of this is lost to you because of COVID-19. You still have the potential to be the person that a bereaved pupil can turn to when everything feels dark and frightening. We have picked up on the key differences that the global pandemic has brought about in the questions, which we will now aim to answer. I'm going to ask Donna to read out the first question and respond to it. Over to you, Donna.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So, hello, I'm Donna, and I'm going to take you through our first question. So, this is question 1. I have a pupil whose mum died from cancer, and she was unable to say goodbye in the usual way at the hospice. Because of social distancing, self-shielding, and self-isolation, the funeral will be very different to what the family have planned, and they're feeling very distressed. How can I support this child at such a difficult time? So being able to spend time together at the end of a loved one's life and attending a funeral is a very important part of the grieving process. Restrictions to the usual way of saying goodbye will of course have an impact on everyone's grief, but may be particularly distressing for children and young people, especially if they don't fully understand the reason for these restrictions. If a child is allowed to attend, the experience will be very different to what would normally happen. Social distancing will have been observed without the usual comforting opportunities for hugs and physical contact between households. Some family members may not be able to attend at all if they're self-shielding or ill themselves. All these features of funerals during the pandemic will have a long-term impact on well-being and the grieving process itself. And this will impact children indirectly, if not directly. In normal circumstances, we would always advise families to give their children a choice about whether they wish to attend the funeral or not. In the current circumstances, funerals are being conducted with minimal numbers, typically around 10 mourners, but in some cases no mourners are allowed at all. Some children and young people simply won't be given the choice to attend, or if they are, may find the experience more disturbing than comforting. Conversely, some children may have to attend as there will be no means of putting childcare in place for them if a caregiver is attending the funeral, so they'll simply have to go with them. Your pupil is likely to be already distressed by not being able to be physically close to mum to say goodbye at the end of her life, so they will be experiencing intense emotions as a result of this. They will also be witnessing dad's grief and that of other siblings, which will be impacted by this too. If you're supporting a child whilst funeral arrangements are taking place, there are a number of ways that you can support them to take part in the ceremony if that's what the family wants, even if they aren't able to attend. Families may choose to stream the funeral service, so children will be able to take part remotely via Zoom, FaceTime or other platforms. This means that they can write, draw or make contributions which can be passed to the funeral director, or they can share or read out their contributions remotely. With the family's permission, you may be able to help them write some of their treasured memories to be used as a reading at the funeral, or perhaps help them compose a poem or a song. Younger children might like to make artwork to share online or be placed in the coffin. Children and young people may also find it comforting to put together a photograph slideshow to share. Always follow the child's and their family's lead and help them to think of creative ideas they could use based on their relationship with their loved one. Everyone bereaved during this time will, to some extent, find that their grieving process is put on hold because the usual rituals and consolations during their loss can't be done. You may be concerned that your pupil's behaviour will change, as it's natural for bereaved children to either withdraw and be quieter than usual or become more challenging and demonstrative than usual. Even if other family members are showing distress, you may find that your pupil appears to be not affected at all, at least on the surface, and they might busy themselves to distract from painful feelings. They might appear to be numbed by their experience, only for their feelings to emerge much later on, perhaps when you least expect it. Be mindful over the year of potential triggers in this instance, such as Mum's birthday, Mother's Day, Christmas, the child's birthday, or other children's experiences similar to theirs coming up in conversations at school. So how to help? If your pupil is struggling, you can do the following to help support them. Give them time and space to share their thoughts and feelings. Is there a member of staff who could sit and listen to them? Do they want time alone for a while? Give them opportunities to make some things in memory of Mum, perhaps put together a memory box and talk through memories linked to each object with them. If circumstances haven't allowed them to attend the funeral, you can help them plan their own special ritual for when family and friends can meet together again. Focusing on a positive future event to honour Mum's life might be comforting for them. So you can help them build a picture of Mum's personality and what they loved best about her, like her favourite food, songs, jokes, sayings, clothes, and happy memories from holidays and food. So this next slide looks blank at the moment. This is a video from somebody called Dr. Pookie Knightsmith, and she's a mental health educator, and this is a really good exercise that you can teach children to do if they're feeling anxious, and this helps to calm down their nervous system, and it's called 5-count breathing. So hopefully bear with me on the technology, and I'm just going to start the film now.
And you can learn this with colleagues, you can teach it to kids, you could show this video directly to kids. If you are doing, hi kids, hi, do you like my dog? It's Buddy. Okay, so first of all, take your hand in front of you, spread it out, think like a starfish, okay? And what we're going to be doing, we're going to take a finger from our other hand, and we're going to trace around our fingers. As we get to the top of each finger, we're going to pause. As we get to the bottom, we pause. So trace nice and slowly, pause, trace and pause, trace and pause. Okay, so now we're going to add the breathing in. Okay, so as you move up, breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause, breathe in, pause, and out, pause, breathe in, pause, and out, pause, in, pause, out, pause, and in, pause, and out. Okay, now you've done that, give your hand a little shake. Now stop and have a think. How do you feel now? Do you feel a bit calmer? Or do you want to take another 5? If you want to go again, go again. Just remember, you're just tracing. So in on the way up and pause, out on the way down and pause. So it's super simple. You can teach this to anyone, any age, and it's something you can do anywhere. You don't need anything except your hands. So just remember, just trace around, use your fingers, take 5. Good luck. I hope it's helpful. I hope you like it. And if you have any other breathing techniques or other simple strategies you would like me to demonstrate in future videos, then let me know by leaving a comment down below. See you next time. Bye.
Okay, I've put a link up to Pookie's website at the end of this webinar, actually. There's lots of really good resources there. So I'm now going to hand you over to my colleague Liz, who's going to take you through the next question. Okay, Liz?
Thank you so much, Donna. Hi, I'm Liz, and this is my first question. I've noticed recently that a pupil whose dad died 2 years ago is now showing signs of distress and anxiety again in the light of the pandemic. What can I do to help support them at this time. Next slide, please, Donna. Next slide, I think. Next slide, Donna.
Sorry.
Thank you. So I'm going to start off my question with a beautiful quote about memories. Memories are where our loved ones continue to live after they're gone. It's why we hold on to objects that remind us of them and go to places where they feel near. True, when someone we love dies, we are forever more at risk of their memory triggering aftershocks of the pain. But inversely, if we let them, such reminders may also fill us with warmth and comfort. And that's from Patricia King, The Empty Chair at Christmas. Next slide, please, Donna. So, re-traumatisation. Grief does not have a time frame and can have a re-traumatising impact at different points in an individual's life. This can be anything that brings up memories of a loss that occurred in someone's life. And this can be due to various reasons, such as a subsequent bereavement, a secondary loss, such as parent separation, moving home, death of a pet, that sort of thing. Growing into a new stage of development, thus having developed a more in-depth understanding of death and its effect. Certain life events, for example, changing schools, surviving parents, starting a new relationship, new siblings, and all that might entail. Certain times of the year, certain celebrations, family occasions, and in particular the anniversary of the death. It is also very likely that the global COVID-19 pandemic might contribute to a rise in reawakening trauma due to the high level of information from the media. Next slide, please, Donna. Your pupils' understanding of death can also affect their grieving process, can very often be linked to their ages, and so this is important to take this into consideration. Again, this is something that balloons can help with, but very briefly, this can be explained as ages up to age 5 or 6. Children see everything on literal terms, so using euphemisms like passed away doesn't work that well, as it can be confusing. What works better is noting that a person's body stopped working and an age-appropriate discussion about various ways in which people can die. This age group may also not grasp the finality of death. Ages 6 to 10. More detailed explanations may be appropriate here, although some children may not yet understand that death is also part of life for everybody. Children at this age might start asking more questions about death and have the experience of some kind of death, such as the death of a pet, being aware of their peers and friends having experienced bereavement, and being able to observe the aftermath. Age 11 to teens. This age group is beginning to understand that death happens to everyone. Older children may start asking about their own mortality, and honest explanations remain the most appropriate answers. This age of development can also coincide with their puberty and all the complications that this entails. Next slide, please, Donna. So here is a video, a Young Minds video called We All Grieve Differently. Thanks, Donna.
To anyone grieving.
Anyone who has lost someone close to them, we want you to know that it's normal to feel sad.
It's normal to feel shock.
To feel fearful, scared, or anxious about the future.
Or worried about death.
It's normal not to feel anything at all.
Or to feel angry all the time.
Or to feel like you laugh too much, or cry too much, or sleep too much.
Or to not sleep at all.
It's normal to just want to scream.
It's normal to want to continue with your life.
Or to feel like everyone has moved on around you.
It's normal to feel confused, unprepared, or helpless.
It's normal to feel guilty or relieved.
Lonely, isolated, or abandoned.
Or to want to be alone all the time.
These feelings may come all at once.
Or you might not feel anything for a while.
These feelings can come at the most obvious of times.
Or when you least expect it. It's okay, it's normal.
We all grieve differently.
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 Take each step, each minute, each day.
One at a time.
Remember to breathe.
Your grief is valid. Your feelings are valid.
It's okay to take time out for yourself.
It's okay to cry on the bus or the train. It's not weak to feel.
It's okay to reach out for help.
Things can get better. people can help you.
Friends can listen, family can comfort you.
Teachers can support you and doctors can look after you.
Others have been there and will be there for you.
You are not alone.
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 Thank you, Donna. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
So here's some suggestions in how to support a pupil. As my colleague has already talked about this to some degree, I'm just going to add a few more points. It is useful to find out what support the pupil got after their bereavement, especially if the death happened at a previous school. Maybe they never had any support, or they work with balloons and will benefit from being re-referred for some more grief support. Having the correct information around the circumstances of their loved one's death is vital, as this can give the pupil a sense of feeling understood and listened to. How the person died can also be useful in knowing if there is any specialist help available for them and their family. For example, if the death was from suicide, car accident, or specific illness. And most importantly, listen to the pupil's story. This particular question mentions anxiety as something the pupil is experiencing, so I'd like to focus on that. Next slide, please. So, anxiety and how it works in the body. Anxiety is fear characterised by behavioural experiences, and one of the most common causes can be after a bereavement. It can feel very frightening, but it can be very valuable to a child's understanding of their bereavement and give them some power in helping themselves, which we will look into in more detail now. Big feelings like anger, frustration, jealousy, sadness, and anxiety can be overwhelming for children. Without warning, their body can be flooded with physical sensations, racing heart, tense muscles, sweat, tingling fingers, as illustrated by the resource on the screen now. Children and teens don't often recognise their anxiety for what it is. Instead, they might think there is something wrong with them. Children may focus on the physical symptoms of anxiety, e.g. stomach aches, and teens might think that they are weird, weak, or out of control. These thoughts might make them feel even more anxious and self-conscious. What is important here is providing accurate information about how to reduce confusion or shame, which is what they already may be experiencing with their grief as well. Explain that anxiety is a common and natural experience and can be managed successfully. There are 3 steps to introducing the topic of anxiety to children and young people. Number 1, encouraging them to open up about any fears or worries. 2, teaching them about anxiety. And 3, helping them recognise anxiety. Next slide, please, Donna. It's useful to have a bit of information about the fight or flight response. And this is a catch-all phrase describing the body's response to stress. Fight or flight refers to the 2 choices our ancestors had when facing a dangerous animal or enemy. In that moment of stress and fear, the body prepares itself to be injured and to expend energy in the large muscle groups of the arms, legs, and shoulders that we use to either fight or flight. Next slide, please, Donna. So the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding activity can be a powerful technique to managing anxiety in both adults and children. This can be taught to children and they can be introduced to carry out the instructions around with them or put them by their bed so it is always to hand. So the way this works is start off encouraging the child or the adult, maybe you can do it together in the staff room, get them to take some deep breaths and then ask them to tell you 5 things that they can see. For example, the floor, a book, the window, a bag, the sink. Again, encourage them to take some deep breaths. Then ask them to think of 4 things that they can touch. For example, a chair, a table, their hair, and a pen. Carry on encouraging the deep breaths. Then ask for 3 things that they can hear. For example, birds singing, someone coughing, footsteps outside the door. carry on with the breaths. Then 2 things that they can smell, for example, maybe perfume, maybe coffee. And finally, 1 thing that they can taste. An example could be the last thing they ate. Next slide, please, Donna. So one of the things that our grief support workers do a lot with children they work with who have anxiety issues after bereavement is they help make up what we call a comfort box. And you can have comfort boxes for all ages, and they can include lots of different things that can help the child feel soothed, safe, with their chosen objects. I'm going to give you some examples of things that can go in a comfort box. So I've sort of put them into different sections. So the first section are what I would say are for distraction techniques. That could be a favourite book or a DVD, colouring book and crayons, favourite poem, inspirational quotes or song lyrics, a journal and pen to write down their feelings, photos of happy times, cards from loved ones, puzzle books, mindful activities such as the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding activity, and these can also be linked to their loved one. The next section, pamper feel-good objects. These are things like bath bombs, body wash, face pack, sweets, lollipops, hand cream, body lotion, soft blanket, fluffy socks. The next section, sensory objects. Rough and smooth pebbles, a nail file, fidget spinners, stress ball, crystals, pine cones, feathers, maybe battery operated fairy lights or candles. And finally, support network. A list of people who can be contacted via phone, text, FaceTime, who are there to support them. And this can be, they could also fit in their online helplines if there is no one the young person feels they can talk to. So now Sarah is going to look at the next question.
Thank you, Liz. So yes, so question 1 has explored not being able to say goodbye in the usual way. Question 2, Liz looked at a re-traumatizing of historical grief, pupils who were bereaved some time ago, but it now feels prominent in their thinking again. And I'm turning to question 3 now, which is really about attachment. So let me just read it. One of my pupils has become very clingy since lockdown started and becomes distressed when they're dropped off at school. What's going on here? How can I help them? Next slide, please, Donna. So what I want to say is this is a much wider issue than bereavement, although for many pupils, any memories that they have of historical bereavement may be playing on their mind at this difficult time. Also, the clingy behaviour will undoubtedly be located at least partly in fear of bereavement and loss. And what I want to encourage you to think about is going back to basics. This is stuff you know already. You know how important it is to take their concerns seriously and acknowledge that they are feeling worried about being left. Don't try to dismiss the behaviours they're showing. You know that reassurance is crucial. Reassure them that what they are feeling is not surprising given the circumstances and that lots of others are feeling anxious in similar ways. You know that you need to be there for them and you can give reassurance that you want to help. Ask them to try to describe how they are feeling to you. What is it that's worrying them? Can they articulate? Can they tell their story? And once they've been able to voice their anxieties, consider ways of responding which take the content from the child. That's a phrase we use a lot in grief support. The content has to come from them, not the assumptions that we take about what we think they're thinking. And of course, that's where we can help. Once you have a specific pupil in mind, talk to us. And together we can develop the specific response to meet that pupil's needs. Those are the basics. You're all familiar with them. Next slide, please, Donna. It's really important then to focus in on the specific pupil. You might be supporting pupils who already have a diagnosed attachment disorder. as well as those that you're just observing new, more clingy behaviours. If the pupil has a support plan in place and you already know what works for them when they're afraid and when they become clingy, stick with that. COVID-19 has changed everything, but your pupils are still the same pupils. Move on to next slide, please, Donna. But if you are witnessing new or exaggerated behaviour, in other words, something that you haven't really seen before, then consider the following for the individual pupil. Next slide, please, Donna. And I've divided it into 4 bullet points. First of all, the beginning of the day is really, really hard, and you must focus on that first. That is when they are saying goodbye. So agree how the day will start with your pupil so that saying goodbye to their carer is less stressful. And that will be because they know exactly what is going to happen once the carer has gone. That gives comfort and routine. Secondly, consider a comforter. We work a lot with comforters, comfort objects. Liz has just touched on that in the comfort box. But it might be, in this case, something that they can swap with their carer. So they might have a pebble each that they've drawn on, painted on, and they can swap them at the beginning of the day. And in that way, as a metaphor, if you like, they keep a piece of each other close to them during the day. Important to agree check-in times with the pupil so that they know if they're worried, they're not far away from being checked in on. So that might be mid-morning, it might be lunchtime. So that they know they can hold their feelings for a little bit longer in anticipation of the fact that soon you'll be asking them how they are. And finally, consider how they will communicate with you that they are struggling. It might be that they display something on their desk, for example. They might have a paper plate that they bring out and put on the desk, which shows, yes, I'm struggling and I need you to intervene. I need you to check in with me now. Next slide, please, Donna. I also want you to think about a whole class activity. Bear in mind that it won't just be one single pupil who's feeling anxious and clingy during this time. Few thoughts. Maybe make your teaching sessions shorter once you go back after lockdown, with more breaks, more changes of topic built in, so that anxious pupils are swept along with the movement of the day and have less time to fret. You might want to focus on games and lighter touch activities more than you normally would, and where that's possible and appropriate, and then gradually introduce more formal activities. And once a routine has been established, then as far as possible, stick to that routine so that daily school life allows pupils to re-stabilize after the extreme event of the lockdown. Routine, remember, brings comfort and certainty, which is hugely important at times of stress and uncertainty. And the final thing I'd say is make the goodbye at the end of the day extra special, with a really well done message for all the pupils, as they will have all, in one way or another, managed their day. Next slide, please, Donna. So this is just an example of a whole class activity that I'd like to share with you. In our experience, supporting children and young people who are bereaved, it doesn't help if you don't acknowledge their grief. Indeed, the only way to process grief is to grieve. And the only way to process our response to this global pandemic will be to talk about it, to ponder it, to question it, to explore. There are lots of ways of doing this with the whole class, and we can provide you with bespoke support to plan an age-appropriate activity that will help you and your pupils to process the impact of COVID-19 together. And there's lots of workbooks out there that have been produced that we can share. If you proactively work with your pupils in this day, you will be role modeling facing the virus together, and that can really give comfort to struggling pupils. This example is from a friend of mine who's a primary school teacher. She did an amazing piece of work with the key worker and vulnerable pupils that are still in her school. and I thought you might like to see what she did. She took the 4 walls of her classroom, and on the first wall, she created an information board, and the children have written on that everything they know about COVID-19. That's given a chance to share information and indeed to debunk misinformation. On the next wall, she created a feelings board, and the children have written on that all of the feelings that they have in response to the virus. Surprising the range of feelings up there. Of course, fear, anxiety, sadness, but also some people's loving being at home with mum and dad and away from school. They've had a happy board on the third wall, the things that they've done to stay happy and to feel loved and safe. And then finally, fourth wall, she created into an ideas board, all the things that they can think of that have helped themselves, have helped their families, can help their schools and their communities. She's found it really helpful to do this because the class keep adding to it. They come in with new ideas each day. And actually, visually, it is a thing of beauty. They've used lots of rainbows and the images that are being used across the country and indeed across the world to make it look really, really beautiful. It's just one idea. There are lots of others. The point is that we can help, both with responses to individual pupils and the whole class approach. Okay, going to hand over to Donna now. We're on to question 4.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So this is question 4. One of my pupils has started being unkind and spiteful to other children who've been bereaved during the pandemic. His dad died last year and staff at school worked hard to support him. He'd been managing his feelings so much better last time, but now seems to have got worse than before and is seeking more attention. I don't understand what's going on but want to help. What can I do? So when a child's been bereaved for some time, it can seem like they've returned to normal, having worked through their immediate grief response in the months following the death. This kind of recovery, however, does not have a finite end date, as many things can trigger feelings related to loss even years later. For Lois Tonkin, this model here should be helpful for you. Lois was a therapist who specialised in grief, and she developed this model called Growing Around Grief. Bereavement is an experience that stays with us for our whole lives, and even though people say that time heals, this does not stop grief being part of our everyday lives. This model relieves the bereaved person of the expectation that their grief should largely go away or that they should get over it. It explains the dark days and the depth of grief experienced, but also provides hope that a new life can be created without being left with a sense of disloyalty to the person who died. So hopefully that's a helpful thing for you to help. So increased awareness. It sounds like this child's feelings have been triggered by what has been happening during the coronavirus crisis, and he's perhaps re-experiencing his grief response in the way that Liz described earlier. Everyone's talking about coronavirus. Many people of all ages have died, and this is being reported constantly in the news and in conversations which he may have overheard. An increased awareness of this can cause great anxiety for children, and they may feel uncomfortable about asking for help. They often try to manage these feelings by becoming more aggressive towards others. It could also be that when this child's dad died, in some ways, this made him feel special. National statistics state that 1 in 29 children are bereaved at some time. That's a child in every class. The care and attention that he received from family, friends, teachers and TAs will have made him different from his classmates, and he may have enjoyed the extra attention and activities that he was given at this time. In our current situation with end-of-life care, death and restricted funerals very present in public dialogue, this child may be feeling that his own loss is perhaps seen as less important, that his loss has been forgotten, with attention going to others whose losses may appear to be more newsworthy or sensational. Bereaved children sometimes suffer from guilt that they didn't do enough or did the wrong thing at the time. They may be now witnessing other grieving children who might appear to be doing so much more than they did for their loved ones. Perhaps he couldn't attend the funeral at the time, or didn't want to, and now wishes he had. So things that could help. So to help a child who's struggling with a situation like this, there are a number of things that you can do to help them. Offer them kindness and a listening ear. This is a message we always say for all of these situations. Talking with them, acknowledging their feelings and reassuring them that their response is a natural one that can help them develop self-compassion, especially if you know details of their previous bereavement. You can normalise their experience and perhaps even show them the Tonkin model to help them make sense of this. It's really simple, and children often like to elaborate and draw their own model. Encourage the child to ask you any questions and be guided by what they ask you. Use age-appropriate, honest and factual language, and if you can't answer anything straight away, it's okay to tell them this, but offer to try and find out for them. If they have questions about the coronavirus, there are links to some free resources that you can access, and we put them at the end of this webinar for you. If a child is feeling anxious, encourage them to name their worries and perhaps sort them into what I can control, what I can control a little, and what I have no control over. They might be worried that another loved one will die or that they might die themselves. Sticking to routines can give feelings of security over their day. So offer them some limited choices to give them a sense of control, however small. Anger is a very common response in children and young people, so here are some activities that might help. So as you can see in the picture, there are stop cards. You can laminate these and they can keep them in their pocket. It's a way of coping with feelings when they come up. They can write or draw what's making them angry and then tear it up into lots of little pieces and scatter them like confetti, and that can sometimes change the energy as well. If it started as angry energy, it can then make them laugh. They can use fabric pens or paints and draw what makes them angry onto one side of a plain pillowcase, and the other side can be drawings of calming things. And this can be used to cover a pillow, which can then be thumped when they need to get anger out of their system, and hugged for comfort afterwards. And of course, there's the 5-count breathing that we looked at earlier to help calm down, and the grounding exercise that Liz mentioned as well. So balloons can provide lots more ideas and resources to help you support your pupils, and we've listed some more at the end of this presentation, but you can always get in touch with us and we can give you more. So I'm now going to hand you back to Liz for our last question today. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. So next slide, please. Okay, so I have a pupil whose granddad recently died from COVID-19. How can I support them? So both Donna and Sarah have talked about COVID-19 in more detail. So I want to be mindful not to repeat too much of this information and look at the role of grandparents in our lives and how best to support your pupil. It is very likely that when your pupils are back at school, there might be an assembly talk about COVID-19, its impact and how the school as a whole are going to work to come together again. COVID-19 has affected the world in such a huge and unprecedented way that it will take time for everyone to process it. Next slide, please. So grandparents. Most children experience the death of a grandparent at some point in their lives. A grandparent's illness and death can disrupt daily routines and send family emotions into heightened gear. Grandparents link people to their past. The memories of their grandparents can offer a legacy of their past and a richness of life experiences they will hold forever. Whether they care for their grandchildren, see them only at special times, or communicate via cards, phone, or internet, they often play a unique role in children's lives. Many grandparents play a huge role in their grandchildren's lives by helping with childcare and even living with them or nearby. Again, as we've said before, recognise that all bereavements are different, as are relationships. Some children and young people have very close relationships to their grandparents, whilst others do not. Next slide, please. So things to consider. Your pupil's reaction to his granddad's death may be affected by the way the rest of their family process their feelings and be more complicated by the cause of death being COVID-19. And recognise due to the nature of the death, This would have made the death and the subsequent funeral mourning period very different than usual, as Donna explained earlier. My colleagues have gone into more detail around this subject, but to reiterate, Balloons has various information about and around COVID-19, so please just ask. Next slide, please. So what can I do to help? So some ways to support your pupil is it's important to remember that as adults, all children and young people grieve differently and at different times. If the pupil is not ready to explore their feelings at this time, there are things that need to be considered. Talk to the pupil about how they feel, what they feel their needs are, and how they feel they would like to be supported. Allow them to ask for support when they are ready. This is also an opportunity to let the child know that you have access to some information, advice, and helpful activities from Balloons about grief and bereavement. Be aware that the pupil might not be as focused and motivated as before their bereavement, and consequently may find meeting deadlines more stressful and anxiety-provoking. This might mean that extra support might be needed once exams are rearranged. Ensure that the rest of the school staff are aware of the pupil's bereavement and that this information is also on school records. If possible, link the pupil to a member of staff that they can talk to when their feelings overwhelm them. Equally, offering them a quiet, safe space can also be beneficial for them at this time. Next slide. Offer your pupil an exit card so that if at any point they feel overwhelmed, they are able to leave their lesson without having to explain themselves. Equally, it can be just as helpful to give extra encouragement for the things your pupil is managing in a way that doesn't draw attention to them and cause embarrassment and lead them to have to answer questions from other pupils that they may not be ready or willing to go into. It is also important to be mindful of any important anniversaries and, of course, if there is a second or third wave of COVID-19 and what impact this might have not only on your pupil but the wider community. What makes this situation even harder is this is such a surreal and unique period in human history. We have nothing to compare it to. It might be possible that the pupil is the only child in their peer group or class who has been directly bereaved through COVID-19, which could cause an added feeling of confusion and isolation. At this point of filming, there have been relatively few COVID-19 deaths in the Southwest, and it will not be a direct experience for many pupils. And this sense of isolation and unfairness might impact on the pupil's grieving process, a sort of why me? If you're at any point concerned that your pupil is developing a deeper level of stress, please do talk to Balloons about places we can signpost you and to provide other recommended resources. Next slide, please. I would like to end with a short clip about a telephone app that can be downloaded called A Part of Me, which has had very positive feedback. Thank you, Donna.
Death affects us all, but we don't talk about it.
You don't quite realise how precious the time is until they're gone.
A Part of Me is a beautiful world built to guide you through your darkest moments, to help you discover your own strength and wisdom, and to share in the experiences of others who know how it feels to lose a loved one.
Everyone else started crying, and I started crying the last because I was holding it in me.
Designed by experts in grief, A Part of Me contains wisdom on loss and love from all around the world and introduces powerful practices to show you how to be kind to yourself and to help you make the most of your time.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
Thank you, Donna. And now I'm passing back to Sarah for her to conclude. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Liz. So yes, drawing things to a close, at least for now. We really hope that in listening to this video, we've been able to give you some ideas for how you can support pupils in your school who are directly or indirectly impacted by COVID-19, both now and in the future. And the main message is we're here to help. We can provide tailored mentoring and coaching to you as you go forward through the next few weeks and months. Next slide, please, Donna. We've given all the contact details here. You can, if you ring on that number, 01392 826 064, whilst we're all remotely working from home, you'll need to leave a message, but we're very good at taking messages quickly and getting back to you. There are all our email contacts there, and of course our website. And all of our information sheets, including the new COVID-19 information sheets, are available to download from the website. We've been supporting pre- and post-bereaved children and young people in our area for many years, and we do understand the best practice in this field. And yet we stand at what is undoubtedly a new beginning for us all. Yes, we bring with us knowledge, skills, and experience, but we also commit to researching and learning so that we can continue to understand how bereavement impacts on your pupils and how they can best be supported. Thank you all so much for listening, for wanting to support your pupils, and for doing such a brilliant job. We salute you all, and we will stand alongside you and together face whatever the future holds. From everyone on the Balloons team, we wish you all the very, very best. Stay safe, stay healthy, and of course, we hope to see you soon. Next slide, please, Donna. We found this quote, I think Donna found it, and I thought it was a very powerful way of finishing. Teachers are proving that they are more than just content deliverers, and that distance learning has not meant relational distance. Hang on to that, it's so important. Next slide, please. Lots of online resources which are free for you to download that we've put together for you, including free storybooks which are specifically about the coronavirus. Next slide, please. More resources there. Next slide, please. And that's all, folks. In a moment, I'm going to ask Donna to stop recording, but I'll just finish by saying thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for supporting children and young people. Thank you for being our frontline key workers. Take care, and we wish you all the best from everyone at the Balloons team. Donna, if you could stop the recording now.